You're live. David, how are you? How are things? So welcome to the stream. I just combed my hair. Here's what we're gonna do. Just playing over this little tiny progression that's going from, what is it going from? B flat, E flat, to G minor. So it's just in the key of B flat. But what I thought we'd do to have a little bit of fun with improvising is just use one of these arpeggios that moves across the fretboard really easy, so it's good for connecting positions. So we're just gonna use this. This is G minor arpeggio. So it's really, we just need 3 notes. G, I'm on my 3rd fret of my low E string, to B flat on the 6th fret of my E string, and D on the 5th fret of my A string. G, B flat, D. So 3, 6 on that 6th string, and then 5 on the 5th string. Greetings from... Oh, sorry, wait, they're going way too fast. I couldn't read either of those. So, G, B flat, D. This is a G minor arpeggio. So I'm going to take this arpeggio and I'm going to move it up and down the fretboard. And I'm going to explain that in just a minute, but to give you an idea where we're heading. And then I'm going to add an E flat to it to make it an E flat major 7th arpeggio. And then, so just to give you an idea, this is just this little tiny jam track. But this is kind of what we're going to be messing with. Sorry, that went off. But up to that last few seconds, I was sticking with what I said. I did just G minor, which I'm going to show you how we're going to move that across the fretboard, but basically those 3 notes, G, B flat, and D. And then I started adding an E flat to that arpeggio. And again, I'll explain that in just a moment. And then I messed around with that for a little bit, and then I ended up adding an A. So now I'm getting I guess I'm adding like a ninth. Anyway, we don't care about any of that terminology really, but yeah, and then I just had a bit of fun with that stuff for a moment. So okay, so here I need to open a window so I can see what everybody's saying. Just give me 1 second. Oh, my photo for the thing was blurry. Let's see. David says howdy. Hey, David. Steffel Paul. Greetings. This came in. My notification made sure to catch. Awesome. Thank you. David getting back to playing, sprained shoulder, so couldn't play for a month and a half. I was in Mexico just for a week. It's a totally different thing. But I couldn't play for a week, and that was hard too. Super hugs from New Orleans, Louisiana. Music and peace, aka Big Mama. Eric, he's back. Haven't seen you in a while. Hey, Eric, how are you? Robiskin, watching from France. Thank you. And Vic, great stuff. Little advance for some of us. Okay, yeah, hold on, Vic. Though I'm gonna simplify it. Like I'll totally simplify it, because what I try to do with most of my lessons is make them so they can be for somebody who hasn't played very much, but then also can be expanded on very easily and quickly for somebody who's played a lot, so they can turn it into whatever exercise they kind of need. Okay. Normally I have a page with information to go with these live streams. It didn't happen here today, so normally I would have some graphs of this. Okay, so let's come back here and let's show you what we're messing around with a little bit. So I'm going, we said a G minor arpeggio is what we're basing this information on. Even though there's a chord progression being played that's going from B flat to E flat to G minor, we're just going to kind of have fun with this G minor arpeggio, which is a G, a B flat, so that's my 3rd and my 6th fret of that low E string, and then D, which is the 5th fret of my A string, or my 5th fret. That's a G minor arpeggio, G, B flat, D. Now what's kind of cool about these arpeggios, why I like these so much, if I find a G on my 4th string, I will play the exact same 3 notes. So now I'm on the 5th fret of my 4th string, that's my D string. It's a G, an octave higher than the low G we started on. B flat again, so the same distance noting, I'm skipping 2 frets just like I did on the 6th string. So it's G to B flat, so I'm going now the 5th fret to the 8th fret. And then D is the 7th fret of the 3rd string. So G, B flat, D. So we had G, B flat, D an octave lower where we started. Then we're shifting to 5th position now. I'm on the 5th dot. And I'm going to go 5th fret, 8th fret, so G to B flat, and then the 7th fret of the 3rd string, or the G string, for a D. So that's G, B flat, D, and D, G, B flat, D again. And then we're going to do it one more time by moving it to the 2nd string, 8th fret, it's a G. To the 11th fret of that 2nd string, it's a B flat. Actually, this isn't my favorite guitar for doing lessons because these frets all look the same. Notice my 12th fret here, it's right, there's the 2 frets in between the 9th and the 12th. But like on a lot of guitars that I use for lessons, we just have a single dot, single dot, single dot, and a double dot there. I find it's easier to learn if we're looking at that. So yeah, just be mindful of that. That's the 12th fret here on mine. So anyway, we went, we're doing G, B flat. So we went 8th fret of the 2nd string for G, B flat on the 11th fret of that 2nd string, and then D, the 10th fret of your high E string. So notice again, it's G, B flat, D again. So I had it here and sit in on starting on my 6th string, 3rd fret. Then I move to my 5th position, 5th fret of the 4th string. Same 3 notes, an octave higher, G, B flat, D, and then the 8th fret of my 2nd string, same 3 notes again, G, B flat, D. Yeah, so Vic, the key is, I mean, really it's the key of B flat, but B flat's relative minor is G minor. So, and what's happening in the chord progression is just doing like half a measure of B flat, so it goes B flat to E flat to G minor for a measure. So the G minor being, we hear that G minor chord longer than we hear the B flat or E flat. It works really well. Plus it works really well over the E flat chord anyway. It turns the E flat chord into an E flat major 7th chord when you add this D. But again, theory we don't need to understand at this point, but for anybody who's played a little while, we're going to kind of tie that all into this G minor arpeggio here in a minute. But all we really care about right now is trying to move this G minor arpeggio up and down the fretboard. Now if you're pretty new to guitar and you haven't done a lot of shifting, you're going to just want to work on, one, getting the arpeggio itself down, and then just getting used to shifting that first finger to the 5th fret of the 4th string. Yeah, David says one of those things that sounds complicated, but it is easy. Yeah, absolutely. So something that always has kind of cool sounds to the ears, I think, are when we're superimpose certain chords over other chords. So we've taken a chord and made it a little fancier. I know it seems a little weird. We're like, well, why would I play a wrong chord over like a chord? I have a one chord. I'm going to play a different chord over top of it. But yeah, in some cases, it's going to create some really cool sounds. Like in the case of this G minor arpeggio over the E flat chord, sounds really cool. It really sounds cool over the whole progression. So, okay, and then so after you've worked a little bit on that shift itself, then you can work on that one, and then the next shift is further because of the way the guitar is tuned. When you go from G on the 5th fret, you're jumping to G on the 8th fret of the 2nd string. So that was G on the 5th fret of the 4th string, and then jumping to the 8th fret. So bigger jump. And then eventually you want to practice it going down, and you kind of have to do that the same way. You play the arpeggio, then practice just the jump. So you're giving your brain and your fingers and your ear a chance to see and hear and feel that jump. And then same thing. Now, once we kind of get that, let me see what else we got going on here. I play upside down, and I guess just by ear since a little girl. Oh, cool. Hear and see colors of music in my head. That's fantastic. I love that. I hear like a lot of people with perfect pitch associate sounds and colors. So I don't have perfect pitch, but yeah. So Vic, so G minor and B flat scale are the same. Yeah, so G minor and B flat are relative of one another. So B flat major and G minor are essentially the same key. They both have 2 flats, which is a B flat and an E flat. And the difference would be, it's like the key of, I use C and A minor a lot because the key of C has no sharps or flats. So it's a key that most people find they can wrap their head around easier when they're learning music theory. But the key of C and the key of A minor are essentially the same key. They don't have any sharps or flats. So if you were going to play a C scale, you play from C to C. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. If we played A minor, we would play the same notes but starting on A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A. So we have a minor scale and we have a major scale. So they're called relative because essentially they're almost the same key. They share all the same notes in the scale. They share all the same chords. So a lot of people don't make that connection. It's the same chords. So then somebody might say, well then, if they're the same chords, how do we know whether the song is in the key of A minor or the key of C? It kind of depends basically on the overall sound. Major keys written in major keys have a kind of uplifting sound. Minor keys have a darker sound. So for example, let's just say I'm just coming to the key of C again here for simplicity, then we'll bring it back to B flat. But so C, if I'm like saying go C, A minor, F, C, A minor, F. I'm probably going to call that the key of C because it starts on that C chord and then it ends up on a major chord. It has a brighter sound. But what if it's the same 3 chords, but I go? So now I'm just going A minor, C, F. So in that case, I would call that A minor. Even though it's the same 3 chords, just a slightly different order. Yeah, so back to B flat and G minor, essentially the same key, 2 flats, sharing all the same chords, all of the same notes. The difference, right, is that overall sound, the order the chords are put in. And of course, if we're talking scales, a B flat major scale like A minor and C, we'd start on B flat and we go B flat, C, D, E flat, F, G, A flat, B flat. Again, you don't need to be, I always tell students not to get too wrapped up in the theory and the note names. I mean, we do want to know the note names at some point, but you don't want that to get you so wrapped up, like if you're like, oh, I'm not going to remember all this stuff, it's got an E flat and a B flat and I don't think that's as important as the sound of do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, which note was the same as the key of C, but it was just lower, a whole step lower, but do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, that was the key of C. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, ti, la, sol, fa, mi, re, do, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, C, B, A, G, F, E, D, C. So B flat, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, ti, la, sol, fa, mi, re, do. Listen to them backwards. Here's the key of C. Sounds like Joy to the World. Here's the B flat. So it's the sound we're more concerned with, more so than the... It's funny you say I look like Robert Downey Jr. I think you're not the first person to say that. I've had other people say that in other streams. I think that's a good thing, I think, right? That's Robert Downey Jr. is... Isn't he Iron Man? He's Iron Man, right? I'm okay with being Iron Man. So Vic is saying, learned a few weeks about relative scales being just about the same. Yeah, like A minor and C major, exactly. Yeah, and I think that it's important because there's only 12 notes in music. I think it is quite easy to start making it more complicated than it really is. And... yeah, I think a good way to look at it is instead of there's 12 minor keys and there's 12 major keys, there's 12 keys that both are kind of one and the same. I mean, we do have to understand some differences about it, but I still think overall. My job is being Iron Man. I don't remember what he flies, right, in this big suit. And not a big... He's Marvel Comics, right? Not a big Marvel comic guy. But my kids like them. Okay, let's get back on track. So we're doing the G minor arpeggio. So now let's go talk about some things, because this is supposed to be a lesson on improvising. So let's talk about some things once we have that under our fingertips. Now, if you don't have it under your fingertips yet, you can't probably expect to do what we're doing right now. But if you know, say, your G minor pentatonic scale, 1 4 1 3 1 3 1 3 1 4 1 4, that's fingering. It's really going frets 3 to 6, 3 to 5, 3 to 5, 3 to 5, 3 to 6, 3 to 6. A G minor pentatonic, or you could also call it B flat major pentatonic. Somebody asked me to play Sweet Child of Mine. You know, I've been meaning to do a lesson on that. Oh, get this. In March of this year, so coming up like in days, I think it was March 5th, I remember correctly, that's when musiclearning.com officially started. 20 years ago in a week or so. You know, and lately, this last week or so, or 2 weeks, it's really had me thinking a lot about about my life and how some of the things that 20 years ago the site was intended to do as I started to teach people online was I always wanted the site to make enough money that it would allow me to record more music so that ultimately I could play. And here we are 20 years later, I'm still essentially doing the exact same thing, trying to get the site to make enough money so I can record. It's funny. Okay, let's see. Lost my train of thought. We could tie Sweet Child of Mine back into the lesson. Hold on. Okay, so let's bring it back. So we said if this is fairly new to you, this G minor arpeggio moving through the fretboard, then you might want to use like that pentatonic box if you know that pentatonic box. If not, I can show you some things you can do with even less stuff. But let's start figuring out how to use this information into the soloing. So I'm just going to throw this back on. So again, this is basically just a B flat, E flat, G minor. I don't even know what I played when I did it. Okay. So here's the G minor arpeggio. I'm gonna stop that for just a second. Here's the G minor arpeggio in 8th position. One more time, just a quick review. 8 and 11 on the 2nd string, 10 on the 1st string. And then, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of mess around with it. Just to hear what those 3 notes sound like over those different chords. And again, it doesn't matter if I remember what the chords are that are passing. I'm just using my ear and I'm just listening. Now, after I've done that a little bit, now I want to start working on some more serious stuff. So I'm going to take this arpeggio and I'm going to start working on it. Quarter notes, eighth note, triplets. You hear, if you watch my videos and stuff, you know I talk about this all the time, understanding rhythm, the importance of rhythm. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm just going to go up, so G, B flat, D, and then I'm just going to repeat this pattern over and over. There'll be a couple different ways to pick it, but for the most part, I'm going to focus on alternate picking it now, right? Down, up, down, up, down, up. Notice something about alternate picking a 3-note pattern is that the picking pattern changes, right? So I went, remember there's only 3 notes in my arpeggio, G, B flat, and D. So my first time I play it is down, up, down. But now because I just went with it down, I have to go up. So when I go to do the arpeggio a second time, it's backwards. Up, down, up. So that's a really good pick exercise. So notice what happens on the first arpeggio, down, up, down. The second time I do it, up, down, up. See? This is why we practice. Okay, here we go. So I'm going to put this back on. I'll start with quarter notes. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Then eighth notes, I double it. Okay, I realized something that I didn't say earlier, that this is all. Yeah, so it has that triplet feel going on. Let me come back and see what everybody's saying because I closed the window to go back to the thing. Sweet Jane Cowboy Junkies. I should know that song. Velvet Underground. Thank you. That's pretty sweet. Okay. Oh yeah. So here was the thing. Again, if you watch my videos, you know that if I'm talking about quarter notes, 2, 3, we double it, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Because this has this triplet feel, straight eighth notes don't sound very good over it. So we'd actually have to do the swing feel, which I didn't really have any intention on teaching this lesson. So I could have picked up probably a better jam track to use, but that's okay. What we'll do here is. So quarter notes, swing eighth notes, eighth note triplets. Now, notice I'm biting pretty bad on those. So, and my jam track is set at 130. Ideally, if I'm just using a metronome, I would just slow it down. Triplet. That's putting 3 notes in one beat. Tick, 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 tick. Triplet, triplet. And I just realized a dilemma I have. I stream from the laptop and I'm streaming from the phone, but now my metronome. Oh, I could just use this kick drum here. Yeah, let me just use this kick drum, and we'll slow it down. So it's at 130. Let's go 100. That's 100 beats per minute. So triplets, triplet, triplet. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. I actually could probably put the synth bass back on too, I think, because that's... Okay, so here's what we're gonna do. If you're working on something and you got the metronome out, practice your triplet, triplet, and then just come back to the first note of the second triplet with an up. Remember, because how we said the first triplet is going to go down, up, down, and then when you do it again, it's going to start with an up. So I would practice going. Now I'm going to bring it back up to 130, where I was struggling big time to be able to play this, but I just want to show you a couple different ways to practice. So one is just slowing the tempo down and working on it that way, gradually increasing the tempo, right, over days and weeks and months. But here's another way. So I've brought the tempo back to 130, where I couldn't play it, but I'm going to play it in pieces. So first I'm just going to do the triplet and stop on that second triplet like I just explained at a slower tempo. So we're going to go. So I'm just going down, and then up on that next beat, right? Like I'm... So see what I'm doing? I'm just adding a couple notes at a time. I'm going back to just the 4 notes. Cool. See what's happening? Like, so this is how we want to practice, so we can constantly keep growing and growing. And so, you know, most of us know if we slow the tempo down, that's a great way to practice. But also, sometimes you can leave the tempo on a faster speed and break it into smaller pieces, like how many notes you play at a time. So notice, when I first tried to attempt that at 130, it was a mess. And there, I mean, I don't know, I was getting maybe 6 or 7 in a row, fairly clean, and then it was starting to fall apart. So if I continue doing that, that will get smoother and smoother. And then notice I moved to strings 3 and 4 because I was getting tired of hearing that arpeggio here. So remember, near the start of the stream, we talked about just moving this arpeggio in these 3 positions. Oh, somebody's got to go. Steffo, I'm not sure how to say the name. Steffo Paul. I'd like to know how to say it. But that every stream I always get caught on somebody's name. Wonderful being, beautiful beings in here. Oh, thank you. And thank you, she says, called me Robert Downey Jr. again. Hitting the road with guitar and backseat. You. Okay. So I'm going to wrap this up very shortly, and kind of trying to keep this stream to like 30 minutes or so. That way, on the replay, when people are watching back, it doesn't seem like some crazy, overwhelming experience. And then I'm going to put the material together that goes with this. So if you go back to, or just go to musiclearning.com, I'll put a link on this description in this video. So if you go back to the YouTube channel that you're watching this on, and then there'll be a link. Okay, so let's just wrap it up. So I would then want to practice that same thing the other way. Starting a high, going low. Oh, I got it, Stephanie. Well, now I'm glad I know that you're Stephanie. That's much easier to say. I see now, Stephanie, Steph Opal. So I got you. Thanks, Stephanie. The plan, usually when I start these, is to try to do them every Wednesday at 1 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. Sometimes I get on a roll and I'll do them every Wednesday for a few months in a row. And then I sometimes get off. But I think I'm on the beginning of another roll. So hopefully maybe we'll see you back here next Wednesday. Okay. Yeah, so we said high to low. That's another way to practice it. And then, what was the other thing we wanted to do? Oh, here's what I want to add, because I said I was going to add this at the beginning, I didn't. So I just want to add the E flat to this arpeggio. So remember we have the G, B flat, D. This is Jonah, by the way. And we're going to add an E flat on the... Hey, Kaya. Hey.
I got it.
We've been doing pretty good this stream. She doesn't have a bone or anything, and she's been pretty quiet overall. E flat we're going to add on the 11th fret of the first string. So you have the G minor arpeggio, and then that E flat. So now the pattern's quite different because now we have 2 notes per string. So it's actually, in some ways, it's easier with the pick because you'll just go down, up, down, up. You'll play it the exact same way. Now that doesn't mean we can't also practice up and back down. We could do that with the triad or this group of 4, which is a major 7th chord in this case. Anyway, but again, to try to contain the information down, I'm not going to worry about that here. So now when I add the E flat, I can do that the exact same way on each of these patterns. There's that E flat, right? There's my G minor arpeggio. There's that E flat. Move to my G and 5th fret on my 4th string. G, B flat, D again. There's that E flat. And then one more time. And then that has a great sound over this. So we'll end it with this. I'm just going to goof around with this E flat major 7th arpeggio over this progression a little bit. And use kind of some of the same practice things that I've been using. And we'll see you next Wednesday. Thank you guys for being in here and watching and being part of it. Now I've left. It was great seeing you, Eric. I'm glad that you made it in again. I hope you got something from it. This replay, I think, will stay up and the material will get added with it. Anyway, I'm going to sign off and yeah, make myself a cup of coffee and put the material together to go with this, and just watch for the link on this channel. Thanks for everybody for joining in again, and good to see you, Eric. Good to see you, Dave. I think Dave might have left, but and Stephanie, welcome, and Vic, I think you might have left too, but thanks for coming in and chiming in, and the other few people that I missed. Okay,